Brilliant. Okay, let's start. I'm going to hand over to Shray. Shray, I'll let you introduce yourself and then pass over to Mo. Thanks, everybody.
Awesome. Awesome. Thanks, Matthew. Hello, everyone. This is Shray. Thank you for joining. I'm from the Mapbox product team, and it's a great Friday morning for me. I'm accompanied by my wonderful colleague, Moritz, who's from Mapbox Solution Architecture team. We both work very closely with our customers to build new innovative solutions for location-based solutions. So let's jump into our session for today. Okay, let me give you a quick intro. The session is total 50 minutes long. Here's a quick look what we'll cover today. We'll start with a brief introduction to challenges of standard routing, what zone avoidance, that is our main topic for today. We'll help you walk through and show how you can set zone avoidance up in Mapbox. And we'll also follow up with 2 live demos for you to show it in action. As a wrap up, we'll try to cover platform compatibility questions we typically get and leave you with how you can get started. Hopefully, we can cover some questions at the end of the slides. I would love to hear what you guys have in mind. With that, why standard routing and what's beyond that? Two popular products in Mapbox for building routing and navigation solutions are Directions API and Navigation SDK. To get from point A to point B, Mapbox offers few travel modes people are familiar with: driving, cycling, walking, with traffic driving. But for these standard routing products, how we call them, don't always account for unique operational rules or restrictions for your fleet. Think of e-scooters, delivery vans, large commercial trucks, or even taxi ride shares. We know these fleets cannot drive on certain roads, or there are some regions where you cannot enter or cannot park. These are mainly for compliance reasons or some business safety reasons. So we need something more advanced than standard routing, what you see on the left. This is where Mapbox Zone Avoidance comes in and helps alleviate some of those issues. So what is zone avoidance? Simply put, it's a feature where you can define custom zones and avoid them in routing. You provide these polygons, carve them out on the map for your business needs using your proprietary data. And once you feed it into Mapbox APIs, it then automatically routes your vehicles around these zones. This gives you precise control over what your fleet's route should look like on the ground. So this is, as you can see, this has a lot of level of control. And we see 3 major benefits when we talk to customers. First is compliance. Examples include, you can avoid fines or penalties by routing around areas which have specific regulations. Think of congestion charge zones. This high traffic area, some of the authorities in some governments, they charge you more to enter that areas. Low emission zones are increasingly becoming popular, especially in European cities, or even areas which has restrictions on hazardous materials carried in the vehicle. Second benefit and applications we see is safety. You can proactively route around known risk areas, and this could be just coming as feedback from your own fleet or own knowledge. Think of areas which have high crime rates, temporary hazardous zones, which can be because of poor weather, or even things like sensitive locations like school zones. During school's pick-up and drop-off time for many school kids, the areas is very crowded. It's usually not easy to drive, and you can also incur some fines. The third application is you can also increase the longevity of your fleet, especially if you have a larger fleet. Even small improvements count a lot. It adds up. You can extend the life of your vehicles by avoiding routes if there are some poor road conditions, just to reduce the wear and tear of your vehicle over time. We have some cool demos, but first, before getting into demos, like how do you actually set it up? So setup is relatively easy. It's a 4-step process. First, it starts with your data. So you need to understand from your business needs which are those avoidance zones that you need, and you need to prepare them in a line delimited GeoJSON file. And you just need to add a simple property called exclude routing. that instructs how to interpret these polygons in Mapbox ecosystem. Once the data is ready, you go to next step. Second step is you upload, and you upload this to Mapbox to what we call as a tileset source. This is where your custom data will sit very securely in Mapbox Cloud. Once the data is available, third step is you connect this data to Mapbox routing engines in the backend. It's one new API. It's a simple API where you just create a routing recipe, how we call it. And the steps, once you upload that data source to the routing recipe, it just connects to our routing engine seamlessly. And once step 1, 2, 3 are done, the data is connected to routing engine, then voila, you start routing on the ground or on your fleet. You just add that recipe name as a parameter in your existing routing, request and directions API, nav SDK, and that's it. Now, all future routes will avoid those zones that you have defined. And yes, you can update data for step 1, 2, 3 as many times as you want, and you would not need to do any changes on your route request. With that, I think best is a demo. So we're going to cover 2 demos. First one is how you can handle a school zones for fleet safety. Think of school zones, areas which are around kids' schools. These usually have sometimes strict time-based traffic rules. So speed limits are significantly lower. You're supposed to drive slower during school hours. Overtaking for other vehicles is typically forbidden. And sometimes fleets must adhere to certain rules to ensure safety. You can't overtake, and you need to avoid certain penalties, and there are some fines also related to it. I'll show you an example how zone avoidance can help in this use case. Okay, we're gonna go back to the same visual of step 1, 2, 3, 4. We're gonna first do step 1, which is preparing your data. And for that, I will actually move to mapbox.com account. So if you once you sign up for Mapbox, I hope by now all of you should have a Mapbox account, and you will get this console. And in this console, you should first you need to set up a token. So if you go in this token and you create a token, you need certain scopes of this token. And I have already created one for myself for this demo today. You need scopes which are called tilesets list, tileset read, and tileset write. These scopes allow you to cover the future steps for zone avoidance easily. The step 2, the next step would be you go to data manager and you start, let's assume you are an operator and you need to first define and draw these zones. So it's as simple as going to data set and giving it a name, school zone demo. I'm going to call this school zone demo live. And once I say yes, it creates a kind of a blank canvas for me to go and draw these polygons. So I'm going to go in an area where I have already scouted some schools for this demo, and just to make things easier. So I'm in San Francisco area. I know there are some school zones where safety can be important. Let's see. All right. Okay. Here you go. So here is a school. I'm going to click a point here just for visual reference. This is a school. And say my fleet driver says, hey, I was driving around here last week and I got a fine here because there's too much traffic going, and I was not over speeding, but I was chasing a delivery, and it was not a very safe experience. It would be good to avoid this. So I'm going to click here, draw a polygon, and I'm going to say, all right, let's mark off 2-block kind of a radius, 2, 3 blocks around this, and add a property called exclude routing to true. And I just say confirm. So now this polygon is set, and which has a property called exclude routing. This property would be used later on when we connect it to routing engine. I'm going to do like one more school here. So let's say you have one more, and this is another elementary school here. Put a point here for visual reference and say I block off maybe one block of zone here. And here, I'll just repeat the process and I'll add the property exclude routing true here. And just to expand a little bit more, the third and final zone, I have a school zone here called Jefferson School here, and I'm going to do the same. In this case, this road on the left, 19th Avenue, is Main Street, so I'm not going to zone this out. The school entrance is on the left, on the right-hand side, sorry. So I'm going to just cordon off this road here, one block, to tightly scope my zone here. Going to add the property again, true, and done. So now we have 3 polygons defined. You can define as many polygons, which is for the sake of demo and limiting to 3. And you click save. Once the data set is saved, you have it in your datasets repository. I'm going to do a quick tileset creation. What tileset can do is you create a tileset for visual display. We're going to connect these polygons to routing engine in the next steps, but I also want to see these polygons on the map when I'm creating these routes. So I'm going to click tilesets and say create from dataset, and this is the one we just created, and it exports. So what it's doing right now, you should get a pop-up screen on the on your console page here, which is saying it's right now processing your data polygons and it's uploading to Mapbox style sets. What it's doing is it's uploading a polygon where you can actually visually style and change the look and feel of these polygons on the map. So we're going to give this a few more seconds to upload. All right, it says success. So the tileset is now created. I'm quickly going to go to styles. Styles is where you will actually change its look and feel. And I'm going to just use default settings, customize. And here I have the full globe view, which is super cool. Love it. I'm going to add a layer, which is and choose my source on the right hand side, and actually go do a search for the school zone tileset I just created. I'm going to zoom in to where I have these tilesets created. Hopefully it should show up. Great. There are 3 polygons here. They don't look great because they are black and it just it's super opaque. So I'm gonna style it with a different color. Usually red is good, and I'm going to change the opacity of it to make it a little bit easy to follow. And that's it. I'm going to click publish on the top right. And when I do that, it should be good with the tileset. One thing I should also do here is change the name, give it a name. I'm going to just use the same name, School Zone Demo Live, and I'm going to click OK. And yes, the style set should be now ready to use in your maps. All right. I'm going to go back to, now we're going to go, just to orient ourselves where we are. So far, we have done step 1, where we have prepared these polygons. Now we're going to upload it to Mapbox tileset source so that we can connect to routing engine. And we'll do this in terminal. So I'm going to go to our data manager back, the data set we created, and I'm going to click download. And I'm going to put this in a different folder. Let's see. Right. . going to make a download again. So make sure it is sitting in the correct folder. And for that, I'm gonna need to create a folder on my side. Just give me a second. Right. All right. Okay. Cool. Now I think we can go to my terminal. Here we have this GeoJSON file that is downloaded. What you can see here, this is a not line delimited. So what I'm going to do is, since our zone avoidance accepts this data in line delimited format, I'm going to convert this quickly. For this, I'm going to use a AI tool just to make things quick and easy without making any mistake. So I'm going to switch to second here. I'm going to click this recipe here, and I'm going to say to my, let me use simple model here. I'm going to say just convert into line delimited and remove the feature type points. Remember, we click points just for visual reference, but we don't need it for zone avoidance. We just need the polygons. So here we got 3 polygons and we got 3 feature types created with the property exclude routing. I'm going to copy this and go back to terminal. What I'm going to do is create a new file called GeoJSON. So copy again, and I'm going to paste it here. So now we have a GeoJSON with 3 polygons, and this file should be good to go. The next step would be prepare the upload part of it. Now we have the data correctly prepared. Step 1 is complete. Now I'm going to go and connect it to tileset source. From here on, things would be quick. I'm going to use our Mapbox tiling service APIs. It's called the tilesets API, and I'm going to give it the name School Zone Demo Live. That's the name of the tileset I'm giving. And I'm going to use the same token. Make sure the token that you used is the same that you had with the correct scope, which we defined at the beginning. And I'm going to connect the GeoJSON file that we just created. You can see once it's pasted, you can see this is already uploaded, and I can see this tile sits in the cloud. So now you can refer this in Mapbox Cloud as many times as you want. So step 2 is now complete. We're going to do step 3 in one single step, which is connecting it to our routing engine. For this, we would need a small JSON recipe, which we call beyond recipe. And this recipe is telling you what should be the name of the recipe for zone avoidance. I'm going to keep the name same. And I'm going to specify the ID. The ID here is the tileset source ID that you just uploaded on tileset. And this recipe should be good to go for upload connecting to the routing engine. All right, sorry. So for that, I'm going to use a new endpoint, which is called beyond recipe endpoint. This endpoint allows you to connect to routing engine. I'm going to feed the same recipe that we just created, and I'm going to press do a post command. As you can see, once you write a post command, it gives you a status that this is currently processing. What's happening behind the scenes is it's uploading the data and baking it into the routing engine. So it takes typically up to up to a minute to do that. Oh, sorry, I think I ran the different command. Let's see. So I'm going to post it again. And let's see. I can also query with get command and check the status of it. Right now it is saying processing. So I'm going to give it few more few seconds for it to complete. Usually it takes up to a minute if your data set is small. For larger data sets, sometimes it can take several minutes as well, depending on how large and how granular your data set is. But for this one, it should be relatively quick. So once it's complete, then we can switch to our next step and actually test in routing. Currently, what's supported while it's processing is we support mostly polygons. So when you define these polygons, all the road network that is inside those polygons, they are automatically marked with a tag called exclude routing. And that's how we know when we create these routing requests, we know which roads to avoid. And this data would only be available for your account and not for any other customer. So it's proprietary. Okay. I see the status as active. So this gives me that the message that, okay, this is now ready. So with this, we have completed step 1, 2, and 3. Now we are at a point then we can create as many routes as we would like. So I'm going to go to see. Yes, to my account. We have an internal web app. I'm sure you can create your own versions of your app to test this out. So I'm using this a routing app what we have internally to show routes on a map. First, I'm going to go to style editor and find my style ID. I'm going to copy the URL in this app. What this allows me to do is I want to see the polygons we created on the map. So I'm going to add that custom style here for visual aid, and it loads for a second. And you can see now I'm in like a web app format, and I can actually see these polygons. So this is something would be your driver or a fleet driver view. Or there are these zones. You can also add labels, add interactivity to this through mapping components. What I'm going to do here is say create a route here from say here to here, and I'm going to hit yes. So it gives me two routes, route 1 and route 2. As you can see, these are going through this zone, and this is default route, standard routing. And I'm going to add one parameter here, and that's it. And I'm going to give the name of the beyond recipe, which is the same name that we created. And once we do this, hopefully it should avoid. Yes, so it changes the route selection from going through the zone from around the zone. And you can see the same behavior if I test it for, like, a different location. Here it is going through this area, and if I enter beyond, it is avoiding these zones altogether. You may also wonder what happens if the delivery is actually inside the zone, which is possible. And in that case, then if this delivery is inside, what will happen is if I add that beyond recipe, it'll try to avoid, but it would fail because there is no way then to fail because this delivery inside. What you will see is we should give you the alternative route. Might be better. Yes. See, it gives you get a violation, which is notifications for from route request, which says you're going to enter a excluded routing area. So this comes through a schema from Mapbox Directions API, and you can use this, process it, and show in a different way in the UI. And you also get the exact road segment where you are actually going to enter. So you can create these alerts for the driver. Say you're gonna, hey, by the way, you're gonna enter an area which is not safe or restricted. So just heads up. So this gives drivers the information that what's happening on the route ahead, rather than just not giving any route to the driver. All right, I think that that concludes my first demo, and I'm going to pass it over to Moritz, who's going to show how do you manage this for larger data sets, more in a programmatically fashion. So Moritz is our solution architect. Moritz, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Shray, and thank you for this manual, presenting this manual process. I'm Moritz, I'm a solution architect, and I'm with Mapbox for roughly 6 years now, and excited today to show you how to use the Mapbox Zone Avoidance on a practical example of GBFS data. Can you please switch to the next slide? So maybe first, what's GBFS? So GBFS stands for a General Bike Share Feed Specification, and it's an open standard to provide real-time information on bike sharing for bike sharing systems. And bike sharing also includes scooters and e-mopeds. So this feed allows developers to access data like bike availability, status, location, and also to build software for bike sharing services. Besides that data, it also details regulations that are set by authorities, like city authorities, such as restricted areas, maximum drive speed, or parking areas where scooters can be parked. So how can Mapbox Zone Avoidance help with that? So Mapbox Zone Avoidance allows our developers to respect those zones that were set up by the authorities by implementing zone-aware route planning, as Shray has already showed you. And this is what we're going to do now. So we're not going to take the manual approach. We're going to take the programmatic approach. We're going to create a routing endpoint and also a visualization tileset, same things as Shray already has done manually, but we're not going to do it for just 3 exclusion areas, but for 1,000 or a bit more than 1,000 exclusion areas. And Shray, I'd like to take over screen sharing now.
Absolutely.
You can see my screen, Shray?
Yes, we can see.
Awesome.
Looks good.
Great. So I'm going to walk you through it in a Jupyter notebook, just so that we don't have to switch between slides and code all the time. And yeah, as Ray already told you, this is a multi-step process. And we're going to walk through that multi-step process on the programmatic side. So we're going to do it in Python. And we are aiming for creating visualization tileset, a routing endpoint, and then we want to build we're not built, it's already prepared. We're going to use the visualization tileset and the routing endpoint in a web application to visualize what we've done. All right, so let's first start to import a couple of libraries. I'm not going to go into detail on those libraries. And also we will define what is the source for the data. I have, just for stability of this demo, have extracted the GBFS feed of a certain point in time into a JSON file. The format of GBFS also is a JSON format. So inside of that JSON file, we'll have the same format that you can retrieve using GBFS APIs. So I'm going to run this cell here. Let's take a look at the overall pipeline. Very similar to what Shray has done manually, we'll do it programmatically. First part is we need the data source. And this is, in our case, GBFS. I have extracted it to that zones.json file, which you can see on the left-hand side here in the directory of this project. The first thing after that in our pipeline is we want to load and parse the features that we actually are interested in. We're not interested in all features that GBFS provides us with, because GBFS updates every 5 minutes, and it contains lots of different zones. There are zones where you're allowed to ride, zones where you're not allowed to ride, zones where you can drive through but not park your vehicle. So a lot of different zones are in GBFS, and we're only interested in the ones that actually exclude routing. Therefore, we need some filtering logic to apply before we convert it to a to that file format that we need to generate the tileset source that Shray has already told you about. This is the line delimited GeoJSON format. Once we have that, we will create the Mapbox tileset source, which is the base file for both creating a tileset for visualization and for creating a zone avoidance routing endpoint. We will then kick off the process of creating a routing endpoint and the tileset creation in parallel, because when you have more than just a few features, it can take a little while to generate those. So we want to run this in parallel, so we're not stacking the time. Then I'm going to present how to monitor the process. So we're going to pull periodically for completion updates and the processing status. So we can monitor the tileset creation and the routing endpoint creation. And once this is done, we have a completed state in both. We have a zone-aware routing API, and we have a visualization tileset. And this complete process can be run automatically, let's say every 5 to 10 minutes, depending on how often the zone avoidance input data is updated, and can update your web application or mobile application automatically. All right, let's start with the first component here. And the first component is to understand actually what this data looks like. So I've copied out a screenshot of the zones.json file and opened the first feature of the feature collection that make up the avoidance zones. And what I'd like to show you here is that this is a feature collection that is nested under the JSON object geofencing zones. So what we need to do later on, we have to drill down into geofencing zones and then extract the features. And there are many features under geofencing zones. Each feature has a geometry, and that geometry ideally should be a polygon. Otherwise, if it's just a line, we cannot use it for polygon avoidance. Also, those features in the GBFS standard, they have properties, and under properties there are rules. And specifically interesting are those rules that you see here: the right start allowed, right end allowed, right allowed, and right through allowed. Just for this demo here, we're using most of the features. So we just parse through the complete file and take all of those features so that we have many features, because I want to show that it's possible to really work with a lot of different exclusion zones at the same time. Also in GBFS standard, there are different vehicle types. They stand for electric scooters, bicycles, and so on. But I'm not going to go into that level of detail now. So first of all, let's define a function to read that JSON file, a very simple function. Basically, we're using the JSON.load function of the JSON library, and this loads the data inside of the JSON file. Here to note, I'm looking at the geofencing zones only because they contain the features. All right, let's run this and dump the head of it. So you can see we have 1,151 features, and this is the head. So one example. All right, as a next step, we want to first filter, and then we want to generate a line delimited GeoJSON. All right, so this first step here actually is a function that generates a line delimited GeoJSON. Let's just define this function. We'll get to that later. Let's first filter, because this is what we're going to do first before we generate the line delimited GeoJSON. In this function here, fetch avoidance data, we are iterating over the polygons in the polygon list, and we are fetching those polygons from the JSON object, which is using the read JSON file function. And that, as I showed you before, is extracting the geofencing zones. So we're iterating over those polygons, and so in reality, they might not all be polygons. And also in this file, they might not all be polygons. That's why we need to make sure that they are polygons, and this is why we have this filter condition. We want the polygons to have a geometry. We want them to have coordinates inside of geometry, and we also want the coordinates to be more than 2. Otherwise, it would be a line and not a polygon. Didn't apply many more filters, but you should if you wanted to only exclude zones that actually where actually writing is not allowed. But for this demo here, I'm just using all the features because I want to show you that it's possible to do to work with a lot of exclusion regions. So this is custom logic. You can apply any kind of logic you want here. What's important, and Shray mentioned that when he manually created it, we have to, when we generate the line delimited GeoJSON, we have to add a new routing property, which is called exclude routing, and we have to set it to true. This is important here, and we're doing that. So we're creating new features. We're creating a new feature array with this new property exclude routing to true. To avoid confusion, or actually this adds a bit of confusion, this is not required, this line here. All right, so let's run this. This is first generating the feature array of all the features with exclude routing property, and then it's calling the parse feature collection function that is generating a line delimited GeoJSON file from those features. And we have created it. So this is a line delimited GeoJSON file called zones_0_0 geojson.ld. Let's take a quick look at it. It looks very similar to what Shray had converted with Gemini, but just a bit more features. So we have in total 1,151 avoidance regions that we're working with now. What we're going to do now that we have the line delimited GeoJSON file, we are going to create a tileset source, and we're using the API, the same API that Shray also used. Oh, sorry, no, we're not. We're using the API. Shray used the graphical user interface. So we are using a Mapbox tiling service via the API, and yeah, you don't see the API here because I defined it further up. Let's take a look. Tileset URL, just so you can see here. So this is a tileset URL, API Mapbox.com, tilesets, v1 sources, and so on. I've defined multiple functions here because if there is already a tileset source with the same name, I want to delete it and recreate it. If there's none available, we just need this one function here. Let's define that function. Okay, function defined. Now let's use that function. We're gonna use a tileset name that is or starts with this component here. And then we're going to use the post to tileset source function and create a new tileset source with our data. Our data as the source JSON file. All right, we are uploading it, creating it, and we have it available. This is the tileset source ID of the tileset source. Now that we have it, we can go ahead and we can create both visualization tileset and the routing endpoint. Let's first start with the routing endpoint because it tends to take a bit longer to create it. For that, we, again, very similar to the creation of the tileset source, we have a post request create recipe. So we're going to first create a recipe defining what tileset source to use. And it's a very simple recipe. I think this is only the definition, what tileset source to use. we're going to upload that. And once we've uploaded that recipe, we can publish it. And publishing means we are creating the routing endpoint. So that's just a function. Let's define it by running the cell. And then here the functions are defined. Now let's actually run that function. We're doing that in this cell here. So first what I'm doing here, I'm first checking if the recipe currently is already processing. If it's not processing, I'm going to create it. So, and this is happening here, down here. If it's not found, doesn't exist yet, we're creating a new recipe. And this is what we're going to do now. So now we've started creation of a new recipe and a new routing endpoint. And now it's in status processing. This can take a little while. We are going to just go ahead and create a visualization tileset so we can also see what we're avoiding. Same thing again, I'm going to first define the function. Here, the recipe is a bit different. It's a bit bigger. So to generate a visualization tileset, we want to define at what zoom levels it is available, because it will create map tiles for each zoom level that we define. So here we create a visualization tileset for the zoom levels 10 to zoom levels 12. If we wanted to see it in zoom level 20, for example, we would have to define it in the recipe. And this recipe defines how the data is tiled into map tiles. So this here will just define the recipe. And once we have defined the recipe, we will kick off publishing and processing the recipe. So let's do this. Let's run this function here. Sorry. Oh yeah, just define the function, sorry, and we're going to run the function in the next cell. Yeah, we're going to use the function post create tileset. This will then generate the tileset using the recipe that we have defined before. Let's kick this off. So now it's has started the publishing job. This can also take a while. Now, while this is happening, we don't know when it's ready, so we want to monitor the processing status. And for that, let's define a few functions to monitor the processing status. First function here, the get current tileset processing job. We need the job ID, which we got from the previous cell, and the tileset identifier, and we can use a get request to that URL to get the current processing job. Let's define this function. It's defined, and now let's kick off periodically pulling for status. So the recipe for the routing endpoint is still processing, and this can take a while. Let's do the same for the visualization tileset. We're also looping every 10 seconds. Yeah, every 10 seconds, we're looping over this while loop here. And we are running the function get current tileset processing job to see the status of processing the tileset. And that's already completed. Great. So now that now that we have a visualization tileset and we're still waiting for the routing endpoint, we can take a look on how to integrate those into a web application. And let me quickly show you the web application that this is integrated into. This is a map of London showing avoidance regions, and I've shifted those slightly due to some licensing requirements. I've shifted those regions slightly, so don't worry. This is not a bug. This is intended. So if you look at that, you see that they are slightly shifted to the north, but yeah, don't worry about it. However, routing will worry about it. So routing will route according to those regions here. So let's see what this can do. So I can choose a start and an endpoint, and then create a route that is aware of those zones. So that works. But let me show you what this looks in the code, where in the code we have to make those changes. So inside of the web application and the JavaScript code, adding visualization layers is very simple when you use Mapbox. So the map has a function called add source, which can add a tileset source as a source for layers. And then once you've added a source, you can style the layer using the add layer function. And the add layer function just defines how the layer is visualized and what data to use as a data source. We do that for both the avoidance zones, so for the field areas and for the border regions, and add 2 layers. This is why we have these lines on the borders, and then we have a different color inside. So slightly different styling for those two. And then for routing, we are making requests to the directions API, but we're adding the beyond recipe name, as Shray also has done it before, as part of the routing request. And this is how we can both visualize the avoidance regions, and we can route around the avoidance regions. Great. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat. I will hand back over to you, Shray. Maybe one more thing. So what's really powerful is combining zone avoidance with extracting regions from Overpass or from OpenStreetMap. So if there's something that you, for example, cannot avoid using our standard features, our directions API, you can extract those features from OpenStreetMap using Overpass query language, and then you can create avoidance zones and visualize them and create a routing endpoint that avoids those avoidance regions using Mapbox Zone Avoidance.
Awesome. Mo, that was brilliant. Thank you very much. I think we can see that this was running in overtime in London during the tube strikes that have just happened in the last few days. There was 1 million people that weren't on the tube that were leaving their bikes in the places that they weren't supposed to. So now we know exactly how it works. There's a few questions that I've got. We just want to ask a couple of questions before we end time here. One of them, you mentioned notifications. How does it work? And can we use this in applications? Maybe if we just take 30 seconds on that, Mo.
So yeah, when you enter a region, I think this is what Shray has shown before, there is a notification as part of the turn-by-turn instructions. And you can, when you, for example, use our navigation SDK, you can use our text-to-speech engine or just the normal voice instructions to voice those notifications. You can also use some custom logic to trigger other kind of notifications when you enter such a region.
Cool, thanks for that question. Whoever submitted that. And then I think the last one, does it work with Matrix API and Optimization API?
So Matrix API does not support it as of now. Optimization API under the hood is using Matrix API, but there is a option to include your custom metrics. It's not properly documented, I think, yet. However, if you would like to use your custom metrics, and you can generate your custom metrics using Zone Avoidance. So if you want to use our optimization API using a custom metrics, you can do so, and you can generate those custom matrices using Zone Avoidance. So yes, this is supported.
Great. I think we've covered a lot of stuff today. Thanks for the comments in the chat and the questions. Please feel free to add us on LinkedIn. Feel free to reach out with anything you've got following this. I want to make sure you get to your next session, but Shray, just before we leave, and conclude this session, I'm going to pass over to you just with the last sign up, shout out. Over to you.
Yes, if you need access to this, please sign up. I'm going to paste the link in chat. We're accepting signups for private beta.
Great. There you go. You got all the details. I think my last thing, thank you very much to the marketing team here at Mapbox, the backstage people that have been making sure that I don't make a mistake. So thank you for being there in the background. And lastly, thank you to those that have joined in. I know that taking a little bit of time out of the day is valuable time, and I appreciate you spending it with us. Hopefully it was useful, and feel free to get in touch at mapbox.com. Brilliant. Thank you, guys.